You're in Kitchener-Waterloo.
Yeah, we've been in Kitchener since the beginning. We're founded in Kitchener. We're
Yeah.
110 years old, founded in Kitchener, but we have now expanded and have three
Wait,
locations.
Cober's 110 years old?
Yeah,
Is that,
Holy
I didn't
cow.
know that.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
on
Crazy.
fourth generation leadership here. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're older than McDonald's.
there you go. There you go.
That's
Use that as
wild.
the headline, Derek, for the podcast.
But it was
Yeah.
always print.
It was. It started out, long story, but Todd, who's our current president, so his great grandfather had a printing company essentially in his garage and was printing grocery flyers. He owned a small grocery store and was printing grocery flyers out of his garage. And that kind of snowballed and took its path forward. And we are kind of where we are today. So obviously lots in between there. But yeah,
Wow.
that's the foundational roots of who we are and how we operate here. So yeah.
That's incredible. Holy
Wild,
cow.
hey? Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
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 And how long have you been there for?
I have been here for 8.5 years now.
Okay. So you're a
Yeah,
pro.
thank you. Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But
And
learning every day, there is no question. But yeah, 8.5 years.
yeah, and have you always been kind of in the print game then?
Absolutely not, and that's a different podcast for another time, I'm sure.
Okay.
But no, my ecosystem before this was vastly different. I was in theater and kind of performance before this. So
Ah,
stars aligned. I got connected with the Cobers through a sponsorship project that I was working on, and life happens and evolves, and I've kind of been here ever since. So yeah,
gotcha. I mean, hey, theater is transferable,
there you go. Thank you. It sure
right?
is.
There's a performance, there's some interaction
Yeah.
involved, and basically in this episode with yourself, Rachel, we're going to be talking about how we're moving the needle in terms of physical print and long-term brand equity and so on and so forth. So yeah, we'd love to chat a little bit more about that component of what you do in
Yeah.
terms of in your experience with clients, where does that physical print component really move the needle in terms of long-term brand equity in a way that, let's say, a digital display ad can't?
Yeah. Yeah, I will. So I'll say this out of the gate before we even kind of dive in, I guess, to the physical component is I am a firm and sincere believer that physical and digital work best in tandem, 100%. Digital is
Hmm.
such a wildly powerful platform. I think we all know that. We can all experience that in our everyday lives, whether that's obviously on our phones or any devices we're on or any other kind of application that we're moving through. But I think the brands that are the strongest and have the most powerful position within a market have a physical touch point associated with what they do, and that just
Hmm.
creates an opportunity for that a different kind of connection. An emotional connection is kind of how I describe it, and so I'll say that out of the gate that I feel that physical and digital work best together, and this is not kind of an either or. It's a very much how do we do this together, and how does physical enhance digital, and vice versa, right? So that's I'll say that, but I think for me, physical and obviously being a print producer and someone who thrives in that physical space of touch and tactile is that a physical product of any sort, whatever that may be. There's a permanence to it, right? It sits in your space, it's in your environment. It's kind of there's a physical element to it. I think for me at least digital ads, and again I'll only speak for myself, obviously there's some stats to kind of bolster this as well, but digital is consumed so passively, and that's just kind of part and parcel of the medium, right? You scroll so quickly and it's milliseconds, and I think physical marketing forces you to take that pause, right? If you're holding something, you get a piece of direct mail, you have a catalog, whatever that might look like, and it creates that moment, whatever that moment may be, of kind of rest. And I think that moment is kind of where that emotional connection comes in, whatever that may look like. So yeah, for me, I think that the physical obviously is a wildly important piece of any brand's campaign in a market, and how you kind of reach out to your, whether it's your consumers or your customers, whatever that looks like, and there's a tactile component to that.
Hey, that's great. Rachel, just before we read the next one, I think
Yeah.
you're tapping the desk, maybe? Is that you that's doing that every now and then? Or is that, I don't think it was you. I just hear like
I don't think so.
the thumping noise every now and then. I didn't know if it was,
Okay.
I just saw when your hand disappears. I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay. Do you hear it, Derek?
Okay.
I haven't. No,
No?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all good.
Weird. Okay.
Okay. Maybe it's just me. I
That's your
just saw
voice is
your
in
hand
there.
would go down and then I would hear this kind of thing noise.
Oh, weird.
Maybe it's moving a mouse pad or anyway, it's all good. Okay. I'll be cognizant, but
Mark's.
Yeah, it might have been, I don't know if it was something I did or not, but anyway. Physical. Rachel, I wanted to ask you about there was a LinkedIn post I think I saw from, I don't know if it was this week or I'm never sure when these things show up in my feed. Anyway, you
yeah,
were
yeah.
talking about a client that had this beautiful brand book, and
Yeah.
I just wondered, like, maybe talk a little bit about that, because obviously it was inspiring to you, and I just wondered if you could kind of talk about what made that so great in your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll qualify this out of the gate that I think it's the Kinfolk post
Oh,
that
yeah.
Yeah,
you
right.
yeah. So Kinfolk is not, unfortunately, not a customer of ours
Okay.
yet, but it's a brand, it's a publication that I've subscribed to for years and years and years. It's a gorgeous publication, super design focused. And that's a great example, honestly, Mark, of that kind of tactile sensory marketing that's associated. I mean, obviously that's a publication, so it's a slightly different application, but for me, that shows kind of the sophistication of the brand. When I get that it comes to my house and I know that that's what's inside it, I have a physical emotional reaction to, oh my gosh, it's a quarterly publication, so
Hmm.
there's some anticipation there as well. But I would say for me, I think that is kind of speaks to exactly what we're referencing here in terms of how does that physical create an emotional reaction, whether that's the stock, what stock you're choosing, the finishes on your piece, any
Hmm.
embellishments or whatever that may look like. It creates a feeling, right? And for me, I think that's such a powerful place to operate from is when you're able to
Hmm.
create that within a customer. Hey, there it is. Look at me.
Look at me trying out these features
I
on the other
know. Look
side
at
here.
you.
Thought I'd show it a little bit.
So tech savvy there, but yeah, it's a wicked publication. Anybody can check out their site, and obviously it's a beautiful quarterly publication. But there is a moment,
Hmm.
and I think I even reference it in the post, where halfway through the publication, they essentially shift narratives and editorial content, and the stock changes, and you're kind of flipping through the pages, and all of a sudden there's like a gloss stock to it, and it's just like like they're just driving information, and that to me is
Yeah,
yeah, obviously I'm a geek for it, but I think that particular publication is wildly powerful. But I think it also applies to brands that are local to Alberta or to Ontario or Canadians, whatever that may look like.
hmm,
We are fortunate enough, I think a great example of this might be to work with Lamleys, which is obviously
oh yeah.
a Western Canadian institution and a wildly successful brand within that space. And we are fortunate enough to work on their catalog production. So so we were able to create that gorgeous piece that then gets sent out to customers. It lives in their environment. It sits on a kitchen table or a coffee table. Kids
Hmm.
get to look through it. Everybody has a sensory tactile experience with the brand. And I think that is such a powerful place to operate from. When you live in someone's environment outside of a
Totally.
digital of experience, it's super powerful. So yeah.
It's really interesting too, because I know there's all kinds of studies. And part of the reason why I think digital and physical work together so well. Same thing with like radio and TV or static images or anything like that. Like, is because it engages people with different senses. So
100%.
visual and audio and that kind of stuff. But then, like with what you're talking about, the change in the stock as an
Hmm.
example from one section to the next.
Yeah.
Or Lamleys, I don't know if they've ever put anything on the piece of wood, but like you could
Mhm.
in theory,
Yeah.
like because that's
Yeah.
such a big thing when they do the Stampede stuff here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the tactile experience that you can create with I'm calling it print, but like anything physical is such an interesting element to play in for marketers. I think we kind of almost restrict ourselves and our ability to be creative by only thinking about a digital image or a digital video.
100% I agree with you. I agree with you. I think like we're all sensory beings, right? Touch is one of them, but there's obviously there's visual, there's sound, there's taste. I mean, we all know what those sensory elements are, but I think to your point, Mark, like another great example of that would be Apple packaging. I
Hmm.
mean, anytime you've ever gotten
Yeah.
any kind of Apple product, you have an emotional connection to whatever that product is inside long before you actually see the MacBook or the iPhone or whatever that is, right? It's that packaging experience is engineered so intentionally, and there's
Hmm.
weight, resistance, and texture, and the pace of that unboxing, all of those kinds of nuances that are associated with the physical component of the element outside of the product. And I think
Hmm.
there's such a powerful place to live. So many brands do that so very well. Apple's obviously at top of the list for that kind of stuff. But I think it speaks to your point, Mark, to the Lamley's catalogs, to any of those kinds of applications that allow people to have a different experience than you can get with digital, for sure.
How,
Hmm.
it's funny when I think about this. I don't know if you ever seen the movie American Psycho with the business cards and how,
Yeah.
what's his name? The character in that movie, Bateman, I think his name was. He was like
I don't
looking at the
know.
cards and feeling them and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What makes you like, how do you come up with, the type of weight that you put into the card or like the texture within the card? How do
Mhm.
you come up with that? Like, do you work with like an advertising agency to help come up with that, or is this something that Cober does to come up with some of this stuff with some of your sophisticated clients using
Yeah.
those sensory cues and such?
Yeah, I think anytime, and this is obviously a biased opinion, but anytime that we are able to be part of that process, kind of at the point of creation or creativity or ideation, where it's like, what do we want to produce? What do we want to allow our customers or consumers, or again, whatever that application is, what do we want them to experience? If we are part of that process, we're able to say like, hey, we have a beautiful stock that would accomplish this, or there's a weight to stocks, right? Something that's thicker or softer or whatever that may feel like. There's finishes to all these products. There's obviously there's nuances when it comes to true manufacturing success, and we can support that from a creative side in terms of taking that vision and assuming and assuring that it has a successful manufacturing output. That's always a big part of it too, right? I'm sure Derek and Mark, you guys can both speak to that as beautiful creative brains. You create this idea and this sort of concept, and then to take that from ideation into an actual physical experience, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in between. So anytime that we're able to be part of that,
Hmm.
there's a huge benefit there because we can kind of almost expedite that process, but also offer suggestions and support in terms of what actually resonates from a customer emotional experience perspective, for sure.
Great. So you're not just pushing buttons. You'd like to take the more partnership approach with your
We do.
customers, right?
We
So
do. I mean, doesn't everybody, right? Like I would say,
you'd be surprised.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I would say, yeah, for us, I mean, we are fortunate to have a few different kind of channels of business. One of them is heavily supported by e-commerce integration. So we support these large global e-commerce brands that are integrated directly into our workflow. So you go on to any of these kind of global platforms and create a wedding invitation, for example. That comes to us, we produce that and fulfill that within the Canadian market. But the other side of our business is that commercial enterprise space where we support these large global brands, but in their B2B marketing space. So whether that's kind of retail applications or environmental or direct mail applications, whatever that kind of output may be. And hopefully there's a few of them because, again, one campaign
Hmm.
doesn't always kind of do the trick, right? So anything that has more of an omni-channel approach to it, we obviously love to be part of that for sure. Yeah.
I was just thinking about when you're describing that, like typically I've seen, I mean, the classic example is the print flyer. I know it's maybe not the same thing as what you're doing, but print flyer from Canadian Tire comes out
Yeah.
every,
Yeah.
whatever it is, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something like that for 100 plus years. And I think a lot of people think of print in that context. But then when you said an enterprise level kind of investment as well,
Yeah.
omni-channel and that kind of thing. But then you
Yeah.
mentioned the wedding cards, and there's other kinds of things. Are there other industries or clients that you've found that had either surprising use cases that are really interesting and innovative, or just industries that you maybe that aren't typical of what like I would have thought?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, like I kind of said at the beginning, I think any brand that is looking to show up as successfully as possible has to have a physical output to it. To your point, Mark, there are wild amounts of ways that you can participate in physical print. Absolutely. You can get the flyers that land in your mailbox that some people look at, some people don't, but there's still like a brand recognition there, right? Like it's still
Yeah.
causing a brand recognition. And then there's the complete other side of the spectrum, which is things like these agency pieces, or things that, the Apple packaging opportunities, or the things that come with these large franchise B2B enterprise brands that we would support across the country, for example. So we have several
Hmm.
partners that are large franchise opportunities. So they have franchises across the country. Part of what we hope is the value that Cober can provide to some of these brands, and was a huge catalyst for us participating in Alberta specifically, is that we now have this national presence where we can ensure brand consistency across the country, right? So we are producing on the same equipment with the same brand standards, the same brand guidelines, but we can expedite that production and fulfillment to your franchisees or your customers, whatever that looks like, across the country in a more efficient and expedited way. So yeah, I would say the print opportunities are endless. Again, obviously I'm biased and I live in it every day, but I think it's such a powerful way to connect, and I think it is starting to become part of a lot of people's narratives when they think about how to reach customers successfully outside of a digital infrastructure.
Hmm. Yeah, it's such a canvas. I keep coming back to this idea.
That's beautiful, Mark.
But but there was an example, and it was just before Kober um, took over did the acquisition here, but
Yeah,
like it's still with the same equipment. So I'm just going to reference this. There's a statue essentially that was created
yeah,
out of like
yeah,
a paper,
yeah,
which is insane. Like I never hadn't even imagined the possibility of that before I saw
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And like that's what I mean by canvas. Like you could do that, and yes, you can do print flyer, and oh yeah, by the way, you can also do like thank you cards or wedding cards. Or like there's an infinite number of ways to think about print as an experience for customers that is so much more than just put up a sale message and drop it in the fire log that shows up at your front door.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. Yeah. I would say one of the things I'm finding very interesting is that a lot of, let's call them digitally focused brands, digital platforms, essentially. So we can talk about the Amazons of the world or the Canvas of the world, any of these
Hmm.
large digital focused platforms are producing physical extensions of their brand because they understand that physical kind of interaction creates a different level of engagement, right? And there's a different level
Hmm.
of trust. And to your point around kind of the Canadian Tire flyers, we'll go back to the Amazons of the world, which obviously we all know what Amazon is. It's the largest digital platform on the planet, basically. And I think it was, I don't want to misquote here, but I think it was 2018, they reinstated the holiday catalog. So they do a physical holiday gift catalog. Yeah. Yeah, and you can send it out, and kids are circling, toys in there for the
Hmm.
holidays, et cetera, et cetera. And they've been doing that since 2018. So obviously the ROI is there. The smart people that work at Amazon. So I'm sure they've kind of done the math. But that alone to me is such a strong indicator of how that
Hmm.
resonates with people differently than whether it's browsing through your phone or going online and clicking a couple buttons. It gives people a different experience with print. And I saw the statue that you're referring to, Mark, and it was awesome. And I think that's a wicked example of all the various ways that print can be incorporated and into experiential design too, right? Like
Hmm.
into experiential space. And I think a wicked example of that, which is obviously close to everybody's heart on this call, I would say, is Stampede, right? It's
Hmm.
digitally marketed. It's a digital sort of marketing strategy, but it also exists in the city as this physically output brand, right? There's banners, there's
Hmm.
signage, retail, there's pamphlets, there's brochures, it's everywhere from a physical perspective. Even when you get on park, there's physical representations of brands all over the place because it's a
Hmm.
different experience when you see and touch and feel a brand. And I think Stampede does a great job of that. And I think it's a big part of kind of the success of these brands that come to participate in events like that is to have a physical representation there, right?
Yeah. Heck, when you talk about touch and feel, if you talk
Yeah.
about Stampede, it's the smell, to be honest.
Yeah. See? There you go.
Food and booze, I
But
guess.
weirdly enough, you can deliver smell on paper, like
True.
a
You
scratch and
can.
sniff. Like
You can.
it's
Yep.
just, it's like pizza. It's a flavor delivery vehicle. It's
That's what I'm going to call ordering pizza from now on. I can use a
Flavor
flavor
delivery
delivery.
vehicle.
Yeah, curious about you. You mentioned ROI.
Yeah.
What are some of the metrics and so on and so forth that you would, have conversations about with your customers, your ad agency partners, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth?
Yeah, sure. I feel like metrics with print are different, right? It's such a different ball game, so to speak. And I think one of the things that is so valuable and special about something printed and physical is that memorability of it. And that is such a hard ROI to quantify, honestly. Like obviously, and we can talk about this, there are kind of the integrated omni-channel print campaigns that have a real quantifiable ROI to them, whether they're QR codes or landing pages, and there's calls to action. There's tons of ways that you can kind of quantify the success of print. But to me, there's also that kind of just that sort of mental resonance of a brand that you can't necessarily quantify from an ROI perspective, and that's tough. I think a lot of dashboards and marketers, and I'll only speak for myself and people within my world, are really optimized around clicks and instant attribution and
hmm.
some of the most valuable physical campaigns don't participate there, right? And so it is a hard conversation to have sometimes with brands to say you're going to produce X, it's going to cost you Y, and the job of this particular physical piece is to make somebody feel something. And if you want to quantify that, we're going to have to layer in some kind of digital metric associated with that.
Right.
That we do a lot of work for campaigns where there is a call to action to go into store, there's a loyalty voucher or whatever that looks like. And then again, super quantifiable. But I think the real impact of physical marketing is that kind of the trust, the quality, the memorability that is a brand. And it's tough. It's tough to quantify that ROI unless you sincerely believe in the output, right?
Yeah, it's funny because we've had a whole bunch of conversations within the CMA in general
Yeah.
about attribution and measurement and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And more, I would say that there's a groundswell maybe of skepticism around the accuracy and the
Hmm.
objectiveness of the reporting on
Okay.
digital.
On
And so
the digital side?
on digital,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, that you
Yeah.
can measure a click doesn't mean it's actually, like, it could be a bot. It could be the
Yep.
same person who's clicked on it 5 times before.
Yep.
Might not be anybody in the area that you're targeting. And so things like that, where there's
Yep.
just a lot of questions around, it's showing you a number, but is the number actually really meaningful? So I
Yeah.
think there's more and more, especially with AI too, there's more and more interest in exploring the stuff that you were just talking about, which is the harder to measure parts,
Yeah.
as it relates to things like saliency, or I forget how you phrase it, but the mental, like, awareness,
Yeah.
recall,
Yep.
impression that you're leaving, like the quality of the impression that you're leaving.
Yeah.
There's more and more of that. I think that's happening, that people are starting to go, okay, well, I can measure all this activity stuff, but is it just a measurement that's showing that Facebook looks really good and Google looks really good or Amazon looks really good? Or is it actually driving a result to my business? And I think there's more debate around that than ever.
Yeah. I would agree with that completely. I think there is, at least in my opinion, a difference between attribution and then the actual kind of overall impact of a consumer, right? Like there's a difference between seeing an ad, clicking an ad, and then the subsequent actual behavior of said consumer, right? And I think unless you are following down a path of how are we going to quantify this journey at every step of the way, which
Hmm.
again, we do so many campaigns, very, again, omni-channel, for lack of a better term, campaigns with great brands that really know how to I would say integrate the digital and the physical. And I think that is wildly important. If you have a digital campaign that does not feel cohesive to your physical campaign, or they are not speaking the same language, so to speak,
Hmm.
then you lose all kind of reliability there, right? So I think there is an incredibly impactful way to do both. I just think it's important to understand that the ROI on some of those different steps along the way is going to be very different and harder to quantify,
Hmm.
different to quantify, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the part that's beneficial is looking at the totality of the investment and the campaign as opposed to just
Mm.
going channel by channel by channel or
Yeah.
like keyword by keyword, even if you want to go that deep into it. But
Yeah.
because it's hard to isolate in each individual element and the
It
impact that it
is.
had.
It is. Yep, it is. It is. And I think digital is, as we all know, and this is not a hit to digital, it's actually a kind of a
Please lean
what is
in, take a smack
no,
at it.
no, no. This is not a smear campaign for digital in any way, shape, or form. But digital is so saturated now, right? Because it works so well, because
Yeah.
everybody, it is such a powerful platform, but there's so much of it. And so
Hmm.
I like anything, when you're that oversaturated, the impact is reduced, right? And I think we're all getting to a point, and again, I would also argue digital's not that cheap anymore. Like it used
Yeah,
to be.
true.
It used to be a very economical way to put a campaign out in market and see what the results are. Easy. You put out a Facebook ad, who's clicking, what happens, there you go, there's your report. But that those dollars and that return and it's changing. That balance, I feel like, is
Hmm.
changing a little bit. And so um, is creating a physical product more expensive? Of course it is. Of course it is. But
Hmm.
there's a different experience for people within that space. So I find it hard to necessarily apples to apples, for sure, right? It's a hard
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
compare. Yeah.
So are you seeing a bit of like
I am,
from
yeah.
people who, yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of reallocating like budgets and stuff like that back into physical touch points?
Yeah, I really am. I really am. I would say one of the trends that we are seeing very much so, and thank goodness, is truly intentional marketing. Different than, I would say, even we were seeing, um, I don't know, let's call it 5, 8 years ago, let's say. I would say people are very intentional with where their dollars are spent, which is an awesome thing, because that creates more resonance from what that product is actually doing, right? I mean, I think we can all appreciate the economy is a tough place right now. Budgets are tight.
Hmm.
Marketing dollars are tight. So the people that are coming for print are very intentional with it, and that in turn produces better results, right? We used to have and I wouldn't say I don't want to paint the industry with the same brush necessarily, but there is a spray and pray type of dynamic associated with some campaigns. So throw out 500,000 postcards, see what happens.
Hmm.
But I think that mindset is shifting to something more targeted, something more personalized, something that has um, intentional sort of creative and messaging associated with it. So that to me is a very good thing.
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about your previous career working in theater,
Hmm.
and I said, hey, there are some transferable components to this.
Yep.
Print is like, theater is like an experience. People still go to the theater. It's not
Yeah.
like a dying craft or anything like that.
Not at all.
And I also feel like print is providing an experience too. We talked already about, sensory components to it and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So, yeah, there is something transferable about that for sure,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. You're creating memorable experiences for people, which is basically marketing in a
Yep.
nutshell.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, it's I'll kind of throw it back just because you're kindly linking in the theater aspect, Derek, so I'll take it and I appreciate it. But
No, they call me William Shakespeare for a reason.
do they? Well, there you go.
No, I don't know who they are, but they do.
I thought they call you DJ Whiteside LTS.
Oh, wait a minute.
Whitehorn C
What's
train
your
station.
DJ name? Um, I'll go back to in terms of kind of that experiential dynamic that you just shared, and I know we kind of talked about it with Stampede as well, which is a good example of it. But I was fortunate enough to go to Canva Create, which is a large Canva event that they do every year. There was 6,000 plus people on site. Again, Canva is a digital focused brand, I think, as we all know, but they create these events with a wild physical presence. Like, and it was everything, as you can imagine with Canva, but everything
Hmm.
from, how how the lanyards are produced. There was personalized swag and merch. There was
Hmm.
an entire print optimization. They have a print output component to their business, obviously at Canva. So there was an entire kind of print section to the installation on site in LA. There was print absolutely everywhere, and I just found it
Hmm.
fascinating. It's just another one of those another one of those examples of how kind of creating experiential
Hmm.
design is so very important. And why I take that back to theater is because their creative director, who is leading kind of all their experiential design, is a theater kid, is an ex-theater kid. So that's how it all kind
No
of
way.
ties together. But all about kind of
Set
creating emotion,
design.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It's all about like, what do you want people to feel when they step into this space, or when they
Yeah.
pick up this flyer, or when they, whatever that looks, gets the t-shirt or get the swag bag, or
Hmm.
it's just such a fascinating dynamic. And I mean, here at Cober, at any of our facilities, Calgary included, we don't do a ton of promotional items or merch, but I think it's valuable for this conversation to share that they were giving out water bottles essentially, so like Yeti style water bottles, and then there was an option to personalize those on site, so you could go and have them personally engraved, etc. The lineup, guys, was like around the SoFi
Yeah.
Stadium, and like it
Wow.
was, and it's because people wanted to feel like personally connected to that physical product, and whether they were getting their own name or their company name on there, or some
Mm.
tagline, whatever that looks like. And it was, I could not believe how many people were so deeply invested into getting something personally printed that they
Hmm.
were standing in line for hours and hours and hours. There was
Hmm.
6,000 people at this event. It was just
Wow.
wild to me. And that to me, again, is just kind of that reinforcement of how valuable print is from an emotional resonance perspective, whether it's on a piece of merch, on a piece of
Yeah.
paper, whatever that looks like, right?
Cober's been an awesome partner for the Marketing Association. In the last few years, you guys have produced our banners, and been awesome with that. And if running events is relatively new for me, like in the last few years.
Yeah,
I've done a
yeah,
couple one-off things here and there, but since becoming the president for the CMA, it's become like part of my job is
yeah,
events.
yeah,
And until we had the banners, I never really thought about how important that is to not only brand the space, but think about those things as a memory building experience. There's a
absolutely.
couple the banners this year people were taking pictures out in front of.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like, huh, right, okay. Like
yeah,
people are using it as part of like an Instagrammable kind of spot
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're wanting to show people that are following them that they were here, they were at this thing. Maybe the message said something about
yeah,
that resonated with them, but kind of the same idea what you were talking about with the SoFi Stadium water bottles. Like
yeah.
it's not print almost is an unfair way to describe it because when I think print again, I think about flyers, but it's not just that. It's
No,
anything that can be physically manipulated, maybe.
branded.
And
Yeah,
that, yeah. And it's really interesting thinking about what you can do from an advertising perspective, not only to get your message out, but leave an impression, not just like buy one.
yeah,
And with
yeah,
print, because you can't do it the same way with digital. And it's not to say they don't work together, like they absolutely do, but
yeah,
kind of coming back to the beginning part, I think it's some of all parts as opposed to just focusing on one.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I agree. Sum of all parts is at least from my perspective the best path forward. I mean, we all are going to be participating in digital. That's not going to change. It's more about how do we integrate a physical element to a brand, I don't know, a brand trajectory within a consumer environment, and allow that to have a different impact than just a digital application would. And then to kind of understand that those ROIs and those resonances, depending on how it lands, is different, right? And I think that is very worthy of a conversation to understand how that impacts people, and how it creates a true emotional response for people is at least to me, it's very cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
This has been great, Rachel. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
on
Thanks
this.
for having me, guys. I appreciate it so much. I mean, Calgary has become sort of my second home now, and obviously we have our facility there with 80 team members on site, and Calgary is such an awesome community. Mark, we are thrilled to work with the CMA, so thank you for that. I know you guys have been
Likewise.
big supporters of us as well, so we appreciate that so much. And yeah, it's thrilling to talk to you guys, and I have no doubt that our paths will cross many times again. But yeah, I appreciate you including us for sure.
Thrilling is kind of an overstatement, but
Well, that was more for Mark, Eric. That was more like for Mark. I don't know about you, but you've been fine.
oh, right, there we go. Yeah, sorry, I was just
You've been fine.
projecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just projecting over here. Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate you coming on.
Guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Have a good one.
Thanks.